what's been taking place this week at BBS and some lessons we can learn from the crew that we studied this week. So, first off, this picture here, would that family be accepted in most churches if they walked in today? No. Many people would say no. Some of us know this family, and we would run to them because we know there's fame, there's fortune, and we'd love to have them give an offering in our church. Some of us, though, if we're honest, took him as he was and said, come with me. So God takes us for who we are. He can take you from a nobody and use you in a mighty way. But we can know that it's okay to be who we are, but we need to work to be more like Christ. The second thing I want you guys to get this morning is the importance of building into the next generation. Invest in each other's lives. Today in society and church, we're segregating ourselves in age. The older generation in the Robertson family, they're all about training up the next generation. Phil and Cy are both grandparents. They invest in their grandchildren. They take them out hunting. In one episode, he grabs his cell phone and throws it off in the field and says, you don't need that thing, get it out of here. And starts talking to him and investing in him. And this isn't just a one-time opportunity. And Phil goes on to say that he feels it is an obligation to build into the next generation. You see, at every opportunity, they take the time that they can to invest into these grandchildren, showing them how to skin bullfrogs, how to fish, what to look for in a mate, and how to survive in the world. He feels it's a strong duty of his and an obligation to pass the torch on to this next generation. In this way, so too should the church. We should look at the next generation and teach them, bring them up in the ways of the church, so that traditions and values do not die. Mentoring young people in ministry is a key way to keep the fire burning. And earlier, because I know some of you follow along really well in your bulletin, you'll notice that we skipped a part, and we'll go back and fill in this blank. But basically, another thing that I think makes the show popular is because they're fun. That Jesus wasn't boring, and neither should the church be boring. And the second thing is that, on your fill in there, is that God's word never changes, but the way we teach it should change. We have to adapt to the different societies and the different generations that we have. And so going along with the next generation, this is different than what we're used to, but this is what these kids are needing nowadays. So, but here's the problem. Here's why this doesn't happen. Because we're busy. We all use this excuse, we're busy. We're busy. We're busy. But are we busy doing the right things? Are we busy teaching? Are we busy investing? Discipling? This is something that doesn't take place as much as it should. The meeting with children, meeting with young volunteers or young adults, and just pouring into them. Because it's one thing to say, hey, I'm giving my life to the Lord, and then we think, okay, we're done with them. But there's a lot more that they need to know, that they need to be invested in, that they need to be taught, that we as mature Christians, if we would call ourselves that, need to look at a chance to do this. You may have heard of the saying that if Satan can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. Because that way he's going to then get your mind off of what you need to be doing. Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So we need to instill moral and core values into this next generation. And the past 2 months in the back in our youth ministry with our kids in grades 5 and younger, we have spent 2 months on the topic of conviction. Conviction in that, standing for what's right even when others don't. And each week we looked at different Bible stories. Most of them featured Daniel in where he displayed conviction despite the circumstance he was in, despite knowing what may come of it. He's thrown into a lion's den. He's thrown into a fiery furnace. He does all these things knowing that those are going to happen to him because he has conviction. And in the end, he prevails. He comes out. God has his back. And So they have been through times of very little, but even during those times, they focused on what they had and being content with a little, and now they're content with a lot. One of them, Willie, drives a BMW that is completely wrapped in like a Duck Dynasty print. And so they're a lot better off than they used to be, but they came from those hard times, and they were content during those moments. Happiness is an attitude. It's a choice. It's not based on how much we have. Charles Swindoll says that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. So the opposite of happy is worry. And some of you may remember my grandpa used to have a fish mounted on his wall that had a battery in it, and you would push the button and it would say, "Here's the little song I wrote. You might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry. Be happy." So, if you're not worrying, then you're happy. And that singing fish would tell you that. So, in Matthew 6:34, it says, "Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." So we need to trust. Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God." So happiness isn't a goal. You'll hear some people say, "If I just had more money, I'd be happy." Well, what they would be was they would be a grumpy person with more money. And because they're going to continue to want more. We have this emptiness in us that's not solved by money. It's not solved by another person. You know, if I could just meet the one, I would be happy. Well, that's going to be a poor person for someone to be married to, because they're putting their happiness in an individual, and that's not what we can do. We need to be thankful for what we have. Don't focus on what we don't have. So life isn't measured by what you earn. So before we go on, the couple things I want to share with you guys that took place this week. Our middle school kids each night did service projects in the church. We collected each night pennies, dimes, nickels, quarters, and school supplies, from pencils to erasers to glue sticks,